Imagine a world full of holes, portals leading to parallel Earths. Victorian society thrives, pulling in strange ideas and technologies from beyond these rifts, but nothing comes without consequence. Weird tech, hidden conspiracies, and dark supernatural forces lurk in the shadows. Welcome to Nightwatch, a game that treats steampunk as cyberpunk in the past, steampunk as a subgenre of science fiction, not fantasy.
The year is 1869, and while this world looks Victorian on the surface, gas lamps flickering on the cobbled streets, early cars rattling by, things have changed. Those rifts didn't just lead to new places, they bring ideas, technologies, and dangers that no one could have imagined. And standing between us and total chaos is the Association of Ishtar. These aren't your typical investigators, they're more like lone agents, wielding weapons, knowledge, and sometimes something much darker. They handle threats no one else can. They're working from the shadows to keep the peace. And your players take roles of these associates of Ishtar. If you want to dig deeper into Atlas, I'd recommend checking out
Radio Retro Futures
channel. He's the creator of Nightwatch and a bunch of other books, short stories, comics set in the same world. And on his channel there are a bunch of lore videos and general steampunk discussions that are completely worth checking out if this is your cup of tea. For those who don't know, I picked this game up at Essenspiel. They had a wonderful booth where you could get other works from this author as well, and this is the Associate's Guide for the tabletop RPG they're making. And of course it caught my eyes, so let's do a quick system overview. At its core, this game uses 6 traits: agility, hardness, intellect, might, perception, and charisma. They're all pretty self-explanatory. These determine characters' abilities, with dice ranging from d4s to d12s. When performing a task or facing challenges, players roll these dice along with the boon die. It is a d6, and you roll those two together to see if you succeed. The target number is usually 5, and you have to beat it, but perks and conditions can modify this. Skills in Nightwatch, which I think are very cool, come with perks. They don't just add bonuses when you upgrade them, but also provide a narrative tactical advantage, and I'll go more into this in a bit. Rolling the highest value on a dice causes a surge, allowing you to roll again, and you add all of those rolls to your total, basically exploding dice. And if you nail a check with a result that's double the target, when you have exploding dice, this is quite possible to happen, then you get an overkill, which is basically a crit. There is also a debacle, or double ones, when you get the one on your regular die and the boon die, which represents fumbles. All rolls are player-oriented, meaning that they don't just attack, they also defend by rolling their own defense checks. The game also features a custom card deck for initiative, with each player getting up to 3 actions. And your players have a bunch of ranged attack and melee attack options with multiple types of ammo at their disposal. Talking about health is realized through the wound system. Everything pretty much deals 1 wound dot hit unless the attacker gets an overkill, so double the roll. In that case you get like 2 wounds. And there is a way for you to soak damage. Yes, Savage Worlds is a big part of the DNA of this game, but I would still say that Nightwatch is a bit more deadly than Savage Worlds. And you know that I have a soft spot for these types of mechanics, so I must mention it. Much like Sanity in Call of Cthulhu, Nightwatch has a discipline check that tests characters' mental resilience. These mechanics are wonderful for adding to the physiological layer of the game. So you see something that's disturbing, you go cuckoo. There are also some vehicle mechanics, projects, crime scene investigations, scout operations, that sort of thing. Of course, I've left a ton of things out, but this should give you a general idea of what the system has to offer. Since we don't have a lot of time, I will now talk about the 2 mechanics that I really liked in Nightwatch. So let's talk about skills, because they do things in a bit of a different way from what you would expect. So in most RPGs, skills just give you bonuses, right? You put a point in stealth and now you're slightly sneakier. But in Nightwatch, this is not just about the numbers. Okay, it is a bit, but you upgrade the skill die that you roll, not the number. So you go from D4 all the way to D12. But when you're investing in skills, you're actually unlocking perks, and this is the stuff that makes your character way more interesting. Take a look here. Each skill has perks that give you special abilities. Let's say you invest in the security skill. You could unlock crowd and control, and that would mean that you're now able to keep a rowdy group of civilians calm. I mean, it leaves a lot of creative room for interpretation, but it keeps enough structure that you always feel like your skills matter. If you don't have any points in a skill, you're rolling just a d4. No matter how strong or smart or trained you really are in a stat, you're rolling a d4 because you don't have the skill. And I really like about this system, the skills are not just numbers. They're kind of narrative hooks. They tell a story of what your character can do, and they shape the way you interact with the world. Like here, another example. For example, driver's license. I mean, most of the players can drive, but it makes sense that with this perk, you can perform complex maneuvers with any four-wheeled vehicles. And the thing is, some of the perks have prerequisites. So, for example, you have a racer that drives cars at high speeds through tight corners, and a prerequisite for that one is to have a driver's license. It makes sense. It's a simple idea, but for some reason I really liked it, and it's easy to explain to people that are new to the hobby. But yes, what I was about to say is that some perks do have numerical bonuses as well, while others are just narrative. And I think these will be changed into two different categories in the future. The creator is very open to feedback, and we've been going back and forth about some things on our Discord. And if you want to join the conversation on my Discord server, link is in the description, as well as Radio Retro Futures Discord, which is the place you can go if you want to playtest the game right now. Alright, let's talk about my second or first, not in any particular order, favorite system in NIGHTWATCH, the Fortune deck. But it comes with a bit of a catch. You need these cards, and there is a lot of them. And I admit, I was torturing a fellow player to help me cut all of these 30 minutes before the game. So, here is how it works. The Fortune deck is a stack of cards that adds random narrative elements to combat. So, before the first round of combat, the PM makes a Fortune deck of 10 cards. There are initiative values on each of them going 1 through 10. There can be no cards of equal value. You draw cards equal to the number of agents and associates, including the incapacitated ones, and you draw one for the PM and lay these cards face up on the table. This card pool is then called the Crystal Ball. They're not just determining initiative, I mean that's the part of it. Each card has a number that sets the order of play for that round, but there is also a fortune part for the players and a misfortune part for the PM. Which means Puppet Master, that's how the DM is called in this game, by the way. And it's a really cool narrative element. The fortune part gives a special ability to the player, or a boost, a buff, something else like a new type of action that they can use. But the misfortune, for example, this one, Shadows in the Mists, in this case you would add even more monsters to the scene. In some other situation, a cyborg of your choice may perform a leap charge on your players, or you can move upon 6 feet as a free action. So you either do something insane or just move upon, but it's still a free action, so the players couldn't plan for this. And for players, for example, this one just says, well, you can pass a combat check of 5 and then you can move out of melee combat without triggering any attacks of opportunity, which is pretty useful. It changes how you play the game that round. Before the first round of combat, if the players have initiated the fight, they pick the cards from the pool first. Otherwise, the PM picks the cards first, plus any additional cards for every agent the PM controls, so any monsters or anything. In subsequent rounds, the player who had the highest value initiative number on the card, for example 10, in the last round gets to pick first this round. So not only is this a cool way to handle initiative, but you also have to take into account which boons you get, and still be sure that the Puppet Master is not getting something that can really screw up your plans. Suddenly, you might find yourself trying to deal with a misfortune effect that targets your character specifically, and you have a choice. You don't want to deal with it right now, you can spend 2 actions and just ignore it. And yes, you're drawing these cards every round, and if you don't change the cards in the deck between rounds, you kind of know what to expect after a couple of rounds, which makes planning more interesting. The Puppet Master can even stack the deck to make things more interesting for a specific encounter, tailoring the experience to the type of challenge that you're facing. And you have examples of this at the end of the book for a couple of different encounter types. And another great thing is that you can get creative with it. The book even encourages players to make their own cards. So let's talk about the things that I didn't like as much or were hard for me. Now, I can't comment anything about the layout of the book because the one I have here is not the finished product. The full book is coming out in 2025 and you can find all about that in the description. So we played an intro adventure that comes with the book, and as with most one-page adventures, it requires you to be an experienced DM to be able to improvise a lot because the details are scarce. And the thing that made it hard for me personally was that I was not really ready to just teleport my players into the exact world that the author intended. as this book preview doesn't have enough things about the world. There is like a chapter at the beginning going over some history, and I did watch a couple of videos on Radio Retro Futures channel, but that wasn't enough for me. So I feel like my version of it was a bit different than the vibe that maybe the creator was intending us to experience. It turns out that the best place to gather information fast about this game and the setting is actually their Discord server. There are forums there, a lot of people constantly talking about the world, the innovations within the world, challenging rules, and it's a very dynamic and lively place, so go check that out. Of course, if you want to be thorough in experiencing this world, the creator is an author, so there is a lot of short stories, literature that you can go over. I just didn't have time to go and do a proper deep dive because I was, of course, prepping for the game that was the next day. So the finished book will have much more lore, and Bonsart, the creator, already took into account a lot of my feedback and made some changes to the work in progress document, which shows great passion around this game and around this project. So as I said, we played the game and all my players were really engaged with the intro adventure. They still say it's one of the more engaging one-shots they had in a while.
The rifts are open, and beyond the fog the echoes of the Devil's Island still whisper their secrets. The same howls that once shook the Anna Marie as it sailed too close. Strange creatures can crawl out of the dark, and we, the associates of Ishtar, are the only ones standing between the world and the abyss. The task is relentless, but we endure, fueled by weird tech and sheer willpower, each of us doing it for their own reasons. So if you want to step into this strange world and join the fight, follow NIGHTWATCH on Kickstarter. Don't miss that early birds. But until we meet again, stay vigilant, keep your eyes on the shadows, and as always I bid you
Farewell, Keeper.